Aha moments of joy and wonder. WUSF is always here for you.
Poynter's Gala Bow Tie Ball celebrates journalism and honors Jane Pauley, Dean Baquet, and Gary Trudeau. Tickets and sponsorship information are at pointer.org/bowtieball.
Lakeland is booming. It's one of the fastest growing metros in the country. The city's next mayor will have to figure out how to manage the growth along with storm resilience and other challenges. I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, if you live in Lakeland and haven't voted yet, you're about to learn more about the 4 candidates running to be the city's next mayor. And it's Public Media Music Day. You're going to meet some local musicians who entered NPR's Tiny Desk concert over the past few years. Tampa Bay has a thriving local music scene. What makes it special? Is there a band or a musician that you love and want everyone else to know about? Tell us about them. Call 813-755-6562, that's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All this and your calls on Florida Matters Live and Local. First, these headlines.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump and his South Korean counterpart have reached a deal on South Korean investments in the United States in exchange for lower tariffs. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports that President Trump is in South Korea for a regional summit and bilateral meetings.
In exchange for lowering U.S. tariffs on South Korea, Seoul pledged to invest $350 billion in the U.S. The Trump administration wanted it up front in cash. South Korea said that could destabilize its economy. Meeting in Gyeongju, the two sides have agreed that South Korea would pay $200 billion in cash, up to $20 billion a year. Neither side has mentioned a time frame for the payments. Another $150 billion will be invested in helping the U.S. revive its shipbuilding industry. The two sides have also agreed tariffs on South Korean automobiles will be lowered from 25% to 15%. The exact details of the deal will be published in a fact sheet in the coming days. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News, Gyeongju, South Korea.
Hurricane Melissa's offshore of eastern Cuba, leaving behind heavily flooded roads and damage, especially in Santiago de Cuba. Today, it pummeled the island with top-sustained winds exceeding 100 miles per hour, strong enough to inflict major damage to homes and turn everyday objects into dangerous projectiles. The storm has weakened considerably, though, since it made landfall in Jamaica as a 185-mile-per-hour storm. The Category 5 hurricane was the strongest storm known to ever hit the island of nearly 3 million. Damage assessment is underway. So far, the storm has been linked to at least 7 deaths in Jamaica and Hispaniola. Melissa's tracking north of the Caribbean toward the Bahamas and Bermuda. The Federal Reserve is expected to announce another quarter-point cut in U.S. interest rates today, the second such cut in 6 weeks. NPR's Scott Horsley with details.
For most of this year, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates relatively high in an effort to curb stubborn inflation. Those inflation worries haven't disappeared, but they are taking a back seat for now to rising concerns about the job market. Hiring slowed over the summer, and in recent days, some high-profile corporations have announced large-scale layoffs. Assessing the strength or weakness of the job market is especially tricky these days because the government workers who ordinarily keep tabs on employment have been temporarily sidelined by the federal shutdown. Fed policymakers did get a readout on inflation for last month. It showed prices in September were up 3% from a year ago, a slightly smaller increase than forecasters expected. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The World Health Organization is reacting to witness reports of hundreds of people killed at a Saudi maternity hospital in Sudan. Paramilitary forces allegedly carried out killings in Darfur after capturing El Fasher city. The Dow is up 226 points. It's NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Every Democrat in the Florida legislature is urging Governor Ron DeSantis to help Floridians who are set to lose federal food assistance. The governor has not yet responded. WUSF's Douglas Soul explains.
3 million Floridians receive SNAP benefits. They will lose access on Saturday because of the government shutdown. Senate Democratic leader Lori Berman says the situation is a nightmare.
We're talking about basically 1 in 8 out of every person in the state of Florida, and we have many counties where it's over 20% of the population are getting SNAP benefits.
Florida House and Senate Democrats signed and sent a letter to Governor Ron DeSantis on Tuesday urging him to declare a state of emergency. This would open up funds for food and food distribution. They also want the state to provide universal free meals to Florida school children. Douglas Soul, WUSF 89.7 News.
Members of the Tampa Bay area's Jamaican community are anxiously waiting to see what kind of damage Hurricane Melissa has done to the island. The storm hit Jamaica as a devastating Category 5 hurricane Tuesday. It moved on to cross Cuba as a Category 3 storm. Evie Larmond Loudon is the former executive director of the Caribbean Community Association. She tells WUSF's Florida Matters Live and Local that many Jamaicans had no place to run to escape the storm, but she says a group called the Tampa Cares Coalition is exploring how they can help the island after Melissa moves on.
We have not just a Jamaican community here. We have a Caribbean community here. And that's the unified part of our culture. It's many islands, but it's one Caribbean.
The coalition is holding an emergency meeting tonight to talk about what people are going to need and how they're going to get those supplies to them. Cooler weather heading to the Tampa Bay region. Tomorrow's high will be just 73 degrees and the low tomorrow night, 52. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Want to be in the know, but you don't have a ton of time, especially in the morning? Well, the Bay Blend podcast from WUSF gives you the latest news and events in the Tampa Bay area in just a few minutes. It's fun, it's quick, and it's all about your community. Check out the Bay Blend weekday mornings wherever you get your podcasts at.
Support for WUSF and its hurricane coverage comes from EnduraFlood, made to protect Florida homes from drywall damage caused by flooding from hurricanes. Components are designed to be waterproof, and the EnduraFlood wall system can be opened and removed to dry out. Details are at enduraflood.com.
This is Florida Matters, live and local broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, on November 4th, next Tuesday, Lakelanders go to the polls to elect a new mayor. The city is booming. It has a population of just over 120,000, but it is one of the fastest growing metros in the country. According to census data, it grew more than 12% from 2020 to 2023, and new businesses are springing up everywhere. Growth is positive, but it's also a challenge. More cars on the road, more pressure on housing, and these are some of the things that the next mayor of Lakeland is going to have to grapple with. To tell us more is Lakeland Now Executive Director Trinity Lorino and reporter Anna Toms. And Lakeland Now is a non-profit newsroom. They have a partnership with WUSF. And if you live in Lakeland and want to know more about the candidates, call us. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Well, Trinity and Anna, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with the candidates and who want to replace the outgoing mayor, Bill Mutz. Anna, you've sat down and talked with them, so just tell us a little more about who they are and what they stand for.
Yeah, so we have 4 candidates actually running in this election, 3 of whom are political newcomers somewhat. Clay Como is a retired professor and a family nurse practitioner. She has entered the race after running twice previously for first City Commission and then Polk County Commission. And now she's thrown her hat in the ring for mayor. We've also got another newcomer, Caitlin Gracie Kramer, who actually is 24 years old, very ambitious, and really hopes to get more young people involved in local politics. She is a restaurant manager and bartender, and so she really talks a lot about her connection to the local people and hearing what their needs are, what they want out of their local government. Mm-hmm. And then our last newcomer is Cedric Valerie, who is a professor at Southeastern in Lakeland. And same thing, he's really connected with a lot of the community and just wants to bring that voice to the table. Sarah Roberts McCarley is... she's been on the city commission for 6 years, and so she's a well-known face around Lakeland and just wants to bring kind of her knowledge of local government to the position.
What are you hearing in terms of positions, is anything sort of standing out? Are they all talking about some of the same things?
A lot of the issues, as you've already mentioned, we've got this huge influx of people in Lakeland. And so dealing with that in terms of infrastructure and how we manage the amount of traffic we've got on the roads is definitely something that's at the forefront of all of their minds. And then they each have, I guess, their own pet interests. For Clay Como, she's really interested in vulnerable populations. She herself is 75 years old. And so,
and a former nurse, right? A retired nurse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So connecting with, our homeless populations, our elderly populations. For Caitlin Gracie Kramer, it's connecting with those young people. She's really frustrated when she hears people say, I don't even know who the mayor is, when they come in and she meets them at her restaurant. And then for Cedric Valerie, he's got that connection to education in Lakeland. He's really interested in keeping young professionals in Lakeland. And Roberts McCarley, her interests kind of span all of those. So
she's probably more of a known quantity, right? Since she's been on the city commission for a bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Trinity, how much power does the mayor of Lakeland actually have?
That's actually a really great question. So we do not have a strong mayor system. We have a city council system. And actually, whoever wins this mayor's race will actually only be the 6th elected mayor in all of Lakeland's history. So I actually sat down and talked a little bit to one of our former sitting city commissioners last night, Don Selvage. And the way that he put the mayor's role, I think, was really elegant. The mayor is the first among equals. So the mayor has a voice, the mayor has a vote, but the mayor does not have veto power. So in that way, the mayor's position is much like any of the at-large city commission seats.
Do you think the voters realize that, though? Because when they go to the polls, are they sort of electing someone they think, this is somebody who's going to really shake things up and change things?
I actually think the voters who vote do understand that. That is one of the things that if you're voting in the city elections, these off-year elections, we get about 15% turnout on them. Love to see that increase. But we're talking about, maybe 10,000 people within the city of Lakeland who choose our mayor. I do actually think that those voters are well educated on what the role of the mayor is. I'll also say there are powers that the mayor has that's a little different than the other city commissioners. It's a little bit more of a soft power. So the mayor sets the agenda, and the mayor often has the most direct access to the city manager.
Okay. So the city manager in this situation has a lot of kind of executive authority.
Yeah, the day-to-day running of the government, I think, is really more the city manager. And so part of the city council, city commission's job, rather, is the supervision of the city manager.
And does the mayor appoint the city manager?
There is a hiring process that happens, and also so that's across the entire commission, and then also a review process that happens with them.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the race for mayor in Lakeland. Election day is next Tuesday. 4 candidates are running for the job. We're talking with Lakeland Now Executive Director Trinity Lorino and reporter Anna Toms. If you've got a question about the candidates, call us, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Anna, so Trinity was talking about people who vote. I'm assuming when you have a young candidate of the likes of Caitlin Gracie Kramer, she's probably looking to bring in new voters, right?
Yeah, and we're really excited to see what that turnout actually looks like. We've got a lot. It's interesting if you look at Facebook and you look at the reactions that she's getting. We've talked a lot about people who say, Kramer, you've got my vote on Facebook, and just curious to see if those voters actually turn up on Tuesday, or we've got early voting going on this week. So we won't know. We won't know until next week.
I should point out too, I mean, she's a bartender. She works for Hooters. That's like a local business. Is she kind of leaning into that?
Yeah, definitely. So from the beginning, that's been one of her talking points, sharing that about herself. She's very proud of what she accomplished with Hooters, and just the growth that she saw at her business, at her location while she was there. And then really she leans into that connection that she's made with people working the bar.
I wonder, Trinity, what you're hearing from people in the community about growth. I mean, are they happy about having more people, more foot traffic to businesses, more people on the roads? Because that can get people a bit wild and cranky, right? If their commute to work is a little longer in the morning. It's
been truly the most kind of controversial issue, I think, in Lakeland since probably 2020. So for at least the last 5 years, there's been a tremendous amount of talk about what does smart growth look like. It's... And
what it actually is smart growth, because, I mean, sometimes when you get into those terms, people's eyes glaze over like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah, and, we've been struggling to define that ourselves, honestly. We held an entire forum asking the question, what is smart growth and what does that look like? I think, for a lot of Lakelanders, that can be density in our downtown area, that can be, things that will add affordable housing without necessarily, increasing already heavily burdened roads or sewer systems or, all of those infrastructure concerns. And so it's really about taking more of a long-term view. But, part of Lakeland, it's perfectly situated. It's kind of the crossroads of Florida in a lot of ways. So it's been perfect for logistics industries, shipping industries, and things like that. And, of course, we're also the home to Publix.
Sure. And the traffic is pretty bad, though. I have noticed that, that stretch of I-4 between Lakeland and Tampa, that is getting pretty clogged these days.
That is getting pretty clogged. It's usually more around Thonotosassa.
Sure.
But even for the Lakelanders who don't really commute outside of Lakeland, there's an increasing complaint about how long it takes to actually traverse the entire city now. Lakeland can really only grow southward at this point. We're bounded on the north end by the Green Swamp, which is undevelopable if we want to maintain any kind of green ecosystem here at all. So that's protected, and you wouldn't want to develop that either. And then we're already bounded on either side, by the county line on one side, and then, the growth in Auburndale
sure.
And our other cities. So it's really only south.
Kind of challenges there geographically. I wanted to talk about the money real quick, if I could. Anna, you reported on what candidates are raising. Sarah Roberts-McCarley, who is on the City Commission, is outraising her rivals by a significant amount. What have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, she's got a lot of backers that have backed her previously from the time that she was running for commission, and so they've really shown up for her. We also have candidates like Klimko, who really wanted to cap her donations at $5,000, and so when she got there, she's done, and she's not going to take any more. Really saying that that's not what this race is about. It's about representing the people.
Kind of making a moral stand here,
in a way she is. And honestly, even in some of our commission races, we're seeing the same thing. We've got one commission race where someone has way outraised the other. And then in the other race, we had two candidates who were determined that they weren't going to take a lot of funds away from people who might be struggling right now. So obviously, those funds mean that more people are going to recognize probably some names when Election Day comes. But I do think it gives the candidates a good opportunity to talk about their priorities and what, if they do want to take that money from the citizens themselves and put it toward a campaign, or if they want that to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, and if I can add in a little bit here, so Sarah Roberts-McCarley has raised over $82,000, which is a record-breaking amount. The next most expensive one was the last mayor's race at a little over $70,000. And then in addition to that, there is a PAC that's also spending some money on her behalf as well. So we're seeing the mayor's race top six figures in the spending.
Yeah, probably a sign of things to come. We've been talking with Trinity Lorino. She's the Executive Director of Lakeland Now, an independent nonprofit news organization. Also with us, Anna Toms, reporter with Lakeland Now. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can learn more about the candidates for the mayoral race and city commission races in the city on Lakeland Now's website. That's lkldnow.com. Well, coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, it's Public Radio Music Day, and to celebrate, we're introducing you to some of the Tampa Bay region's local musicians. There's a local band or musician, maybe there is one that you love and you want others to know about. Please tell us. We're at 813-755-6562. That's coming up next on Florida Matters Live and Local. Stay tuned. I'm
Peter O'Dowd. The federal shutdown rolls on, leaving many federal workers without pay, some families in limbo. We'll hear from a Republican senator about the impasse on Capitol Hill and where negotiations stand as we near 1 full month of a shutdown. That's next time on Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Seitenbacher, with a new web shop, healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com, Seitenbacher, Seitenbacher. Brandon Business Machines. Brandon Business Machines is a locally owned and operated office equipment dealer and IT support company. They've been serving the Tampa Bay area for 44 years with copier and computer sales and service. Online at bbmusa.com.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Today is Public Media Music Day, Public Radio Music Day, I should say. In just a moment, you're going to be hearing more from some local musicians who shared their talents with NPR's Tiny Desk contest. Or do you want to give a shout out to your favorite local band or artist? If you do, call 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. But first, a quick lesson about the deep musical roots here in Tampa Bay. Let's start with one of today's biggest names, Doechii. So the Tampa-born Swamp Queen performed for her hometown crowd last week in her beloved 813. This was Doechii's fourth Tampa performance since 2023, and the tour follows her Grammy Award-winning mixtape, Alligator Bites Never Heal, where she talks about who she is growing up in Tampa, trying to make a name for herself and practicing sobriety. And here she is accepting this year's Grammy for Best Rap Album.
There's so many people out there who probably don't know who I am. I call myself the Swamp Princess because I'm from Tampa, Florida. There's so much culture in Tampa. Whenever people think about Florida, they only think about like Miami, but Tampa has so much talent. Labels, go to Tampa. There's talent there, okay?
Well, Doechii's fellow rap classmate Rod Wave comes from the 727, the St. Petersburg Lakewood High grad, made it big with the single Heart on Ice, and here he gives a shout out to Pasco County in a song named after the year he made it big, 2019.
Chapel for Christmas. All the boys St. Lucie chasing dreams. Do you remember? Cause I remember the day I knew that you be stuck with me, baby. On the road doing
Rod Wave and Doechii both follow in some big footsteps of other greats with connections to the Tampa Bay area. Legends like Billie Holiday and Duke Ellington performed in the area as part of the Chitlin Circuit, a network of clubs where black musicians could perform during segregation. And another musician on that circuit was Ray Charles. He lived in Tampa in the 1940s and recorded his first song there. The city recently placed a historic marker on Central Avenue to honor his connection. And here's a little snippet of a piece that Charles wrote for the city just south of Tampa Bay.
Down in St. Pete, Florida.
While there's still a rich local music scene here, of course, artists from just about every genre are playing in clubs and cutting albums right here in Tampa Bay, and you're going to meet a few of them in just a moment. If you want to give a shout out to your local favorite band or artist, call 813-755-6562. Send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Many of you know about NPR's Tiny Desk concerts. For those unfamiliar, it's the wildly popular mini-concerts performed behind a desk in NPR's Washington, D.C. headquarters, seriously in a cubicle in an office. Every year, NPR gives local artists the chance to perform behind that tiny desk, and we've found 3 local artists who entered the contest. With us in studio is Tyler David. He's a singer-songwriter, and later on you're going to hear from 2 more artists as well. Tyler, first we have to share a little disclosure. We booked you on today's show before realizing you worked with us as newsroom intern a while back. Your alter ego there, but it's great to see you again in this musical role. So you're going to play something for us. Just tell us what it is that you're going to perform.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to be performing the song that I did for my Tiny Desk entry. It's called Distance, and it's one that has kind of evolved as I've recorded it, so I'm excited to play it.
All right, take it away.
And what's the motive? Where to go?
I think about it when I'm alone, and I hold the moment, fight the tongue. But what I know is all that I want, and leaving's coming then and now. I think about it when you're not around, and there's so much out here left to find. But what's going on in my mind? And if distance makes the heart grow fonder, why do all the days feel longer and longer? And if I were to leave tomorrow on time that's borrowed, I'd still end up at your door. And should I hurry? Should I wait? I'm indecisive, too much to say, and I feel it strongly when I look at you. But what else is there to prove? And if distance makes the heart grow fonder, why do all the days feel longer and longer? And if I were to leave tomorrow on time that's borrowed, I'd still end up at your door. And ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, da-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-dum, ba-ba-dum, and ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Distance makes it all feel further, baby. And ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Distance makes it all feel further. And if distance makes the heart grow fonder, why do all the days feel longer and longer? And if I were to leave tomorrow on time that's borrowed, I'd still end up at your door. And don't you know the distance makes the heart grow fonder? Why do all the days feel longer and longer?
All right, Tyler David, what a great song.
Thank you.
Yeah, scoot up a little bit so you can talk for a moment or two. So you've got an original album out. You perform at coffee houses and the like. How do you get people to hear your original work?
Yeah, I think it's right now we're at an interesting point where independent artists have so many different avenues to try to share their music. So for me, it's trying to combine that online presence, making sure that, you're getting out there online, but also to making sure that you're connecting with the local community and really wanting to still foster that sense of live community that, sometimes you feel like is lost today.
Yeah, where can people find your stuff? You're on Instagram, other social media?
On all streaming platforms, my music is Tyler David, and then my all my social media handles are at Tyler David Songs.
Are people coming to your performances because they see you on those platforms, or is it the other way around? They hear you performing and then they go kind of check out your other stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both, for sure. I definitely think that, building that online presence can, get that support too, but I think it's also important to be performing live so that people can see you and then kind of follow you throughout your journey, wherever it might take you.
Tyler David, singer-songwriter, thank you so much for coming by and playing playing a tune, I should say. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Up next, we've got a little bit of folk for you and a bassist for hire. You're going to hear from two more artists from the NPR Tiny Desk contest. And if you want to give a shout out to your favorite local band or artist, call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also write us an email. We are at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Stay tuned. More from the Public Radio Music Day here on Florida Matters Live and Local is coming up right after this. Stay with us.
on the next Fresh Air weekend, Malala Yousafzai, the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, discusses her new memoir. Also, Ken Burns talks about his new PBS documentary series on the Revolutionary War. It includes the perspectives of women, Native Americans, and enslaved and free Black people. Join us.
Fresh Air can now be heard weeknights, Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard, east of Havana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more at Adelaide.com. You can help protect Florida's land and water for the benefit of people and nature at Big Waters Land Trust Party in Paradise, Saturday, November 8th at 6 p.m. at the Bay Preserve in Osprey. Tickets and information at bigwaterslandtrust.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Today is Public Radio Music Day, and to celebrate, we're speaking with some local artists who participated in NPR's Tiny Desk contest. If you want to give a shout out to your favorite local band or artist, call 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, before the break, you heard from singer-songwriter Tyler David, and with us in studio now is Ruben Rugord Davila Jr. Ruben sings R&B and plays the bass. Ruben, thanks so much for stopping by.
You're very welcome.
And also with us is Aaron Olds. Aaron is a folk singer and plays the guitar, drums, and the harmonica. Aaron, thank you as well.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Ruben, let me start with you for a moment. Just tell me about your journey from playing music to, being a creator, a composer.
Oh, well, so the short of it is I got my start in classical settings as a child. I was in the Children's Choir of Tampa Bay. I played tuba throughout high school, a little bit through college. I've had a background in jazz for quite some time. And at somewhere in my 20s, I picked up a digital audio workstation, and now I produce a bunch of different kind of electronic music.
Do you still play the tuba? You still got that in your closet?
No, I sold my tuba like 3 years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would love to play it again, though.
Yeah. And are you sort of making a go of it as a full-time kind of creator and performer? Do you have something else on the side to keep you going?
Oh, yes. I think the environment these days for a lot of independent artists is such that you kind of have to have like something going on in the background to help you stay alive. And for me, I work as a math, physics, and music theory tutor at Hillsborough Community College.
Math, physics, and music theory. Now, I've heard there's this connection between, math and music. Has that helped you out? But physics and music as well, do they all kind of blend together?
Yeah, I like to think that a lot of disciplines tend to overlap. There is a bunch of overlap between all disciplines. You can look for one if you can't see one, and I promise you'll find one. But with music and math, yes, there is a huge connection there. I can honestly say that my education in music theory really helped me discover my love for math.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, tell us about how you got into music. What kind of led you to where you are now as a folk musician?
So my journey probably started when I was about 16. I actually was borrowing a violin from my high school and was borrowing a saxophone as well. And I wasn't very good at either one of them necessarily, but...
Those are both pretty tough instruments to get good at quickly though, right? I mean, violin and saxophone, you got to really focus.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there were a lot of people at my school who were like absolutely phenomenal too at both of those. But I was losing my violin because I wasn't able to continue with the orchestra program because there was a class that I had to take that conflicted. And so I was just getting into Bob Dylan at the time, and I picked up this old guitar that was almost in the attic. It's like really, really old. And my dad had a songbook of Bob Dylan songs, and so that's kind of what got me started playing folk music.
What year was this?
What year was this? I'm trying to think, when was I 16? I think it was probably like 2008.
Okay. I mean, because like how common is it amongst your contemporaries for people to say, I just got into Bob Dylan? Like is he still somebody who people kind of gravitate towards?
Well, I mean, he's relevant in a lot of circles. I think it's probably in more of a niche audience. Actually, I was just talking to Ruben outside. Ruben was talking about Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and everything. So there are, I would say, a fair amount of people who definitely know. And then there was the Timothy Chalamet movie that just was released in Christmas. But at the time, no. It was like at the time that I was in school, it felt like it was just me. Yeah. And it probably wasn't, but just like the people that I hung around, it definitely did feel like it was just me getting into it.
All right, so you've got your guitar, you got your harmonica with us, with you. You going to play something for us?
Yeah, I actually just released a single about a month ago. So yeah, I'll give it a whirl.
All right.
This is called Machine. Questions for our leaders. We have answers in the wind. We have an eve of demolition and votes we can't rescind. They say God's not in destruction, but he supports the great divide. But when he broke bread with brothers, were there weapons in his eyes? It's time we all start listening to people on the other side. They tell us we're so different because they want us to divide. It's time we all start listening before the water makes us ill. In a time of great uncertainty, I'll just say, this machine doesn't kill. There are slaves in California fighting fires for your homes. The prisoners, low wages, and slam poets writing poems for the people at the border who have no other place to turn. But power can't see privilege when only robots learn. It's time we all start listening to people on the other side. They tell us we're so different because they want us to divide. It's time we all start listening before the water makes us ill. In a time of great uncertainty, I'll just say, this machine doesn't kill. Well, Dollar Tree ain't a dollar, and you know tariffs might make it 5. When they refuse to offer healthcare, will their cashiers stay alive? While we cut the FAA, planes of kids burn in a river. The poor elect the businessmen, and the rich keep getting richer. It's time we all start listening to people on the other side. They tell us we're so different because they want us to divide. It's time we all start listening before the water makes us ill. In a time of great uncertainty, I'll just say, this machine doesn't kill. Cesar Chavez got his freedom singing colors in the spring. And women got the right to vote when they did not eat a thing. Woody Guthrie got his unions for the Okies then oppressed. But no one looks at the homeless while they're typing #blessed. It's time we all start listening to people on the other side. They tell us we're so different because they want us to divide. It's time we all start listening before the water makes us ill. In a time of great uncertainty, I'll just say this machine doesn't kill.
Erin Olds, thank you so much for performing. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you're really going old school with the guitar and harmonica. I mean, and is it hard to pull that off? The kind of coordination, singing, guitar, harmonica. What's going on in your brain while you're putting all that together?
It's actually funny you ask that. So like when I play at like local venues, I actually add like a percussion element with my feet. So I have like a tambourine on one foot, and then I have like a cajon, which is a type of hand drum, and a kick pedal on the other foot. The coordination is difficult for me. Like, it has improved with practice, but like, I think part of it though is that like I don't feel like I'm specifically good at any of the instruments. Like, I think I can be good at putting them together, but I've heard people who are like really, really good harmonica players, and it can move you to tears when you can hear what some people can do on harmonica. And so I can accompany myself on harmonica, but I think ultimately it's just like worrying about the coordination, the rhythm, and sometimes when I play live, sometimes not focusing on it. Like if there's like a sports game in the background, sometimes I'll just be watching that, because the more you think about it, the more you give yourself chances to mess up.
Right. So you're playing in sort of a bar and something's going on, and that can be a little distracting.
Well, yeah, exactly. And to some extent, you want to be distracted so that you're a little bit more unfocused on it. Because it's when I start worrying about, like, oh, you know, is the harmonica sounding okay? Or is my foot coordination okay? Am I on beat? Then, like, when I start thinking about it and worrying about it, that's, like, when I'm most prone to mess up.
Got an email here from Angel Seacrest, who writes, "Love Tyler David and his music. He brings such authenticity. So glad you had him on today." Thanks for that email. If you want to email us too, you can send us your comments. We're at FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. Ruben, let me go back to you for a moment. So talk about Tiny Desk. What was the kind of motivation for you entering that? This was a couple of years back now, but it's really snowballed in popularity, right? Was it something you're like, okay, this is something I want to just do for the sake of it, or this is going to be a stepping stone?
I think at the time I did want to... I mean, I was helping out a friend with her Tiny Desk performance, and I had this song that I really, really loved. I wanted to perform it in some way, and that just seemed to make sense, the band that I had put together for her. I had also done this, I was running the sound for her as well, and I just thought, well, if I'm rehearsing these guys, why don't I just do one of my tunes? And I didn't really have any illusions of where it might lead. But it was just something I really enjoyed, and it seemed to have a good reception.
We also found a sample of yours, a song called "Everyone Wants to Be a Cat." Can you explain the story behind that?
Oh, okay. So yes, I consider myself to be primarily a producer. I do write and I do sing, but that is my bread and butter. That is what I think I am good at. And so I've been releasing a series of projects that are purely instrumental, and my biggest influence for like the past 10 years now is a man named Thundercat. I've been listening to that man's music forever. I used to really obsess about him, and that's kind of where all of my themes come from. You know, everybody wants to be a cat. That's kind of my way of saying, hey, I kind of want to be like Thundercat.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of like your muse?
Yeah, honestly, he's probably my biggest influence these days.
Yeah. Erin, what was your experience of Tiny Desk?
Yeah, so this was a couple years ago. I have a friend who just texted me about the contest, and like I knew about it. I listen to Tiny Desk all the time, but I never really thought about entering until she had texted me. And so it was really fun. I already had this song. Making the video was a little bit hard because, you know, I mean, you have to be in the video and coordinate, you know, like what your face looks like, which I think was a little bit of a struggle for me. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. And I think through entering it, probably the best part was like I learned about other indie musicians, maybe who haven't been signed yet. And I didn't realize that there was like this whole database that you could look at for all the entrants on Tiny Desk. Like before I entered, I had no idea about that. So sometimes even like on my playlist on YouTube, I'll hear somebody, I'm like, oh, yeah, I learned about them from Tiny Desk.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
In the last few seconds we have here, Ruben, I understand you composed some music for a video game which comes out soon.
Yes. So next Monday, there's a game. It is a roguelike deck builder. The best way I can explain that is it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Meets Final Fantasy VII and meets Dungeons and Dragons. And it's called Dog Witch. It's about this little dog. He's a witch. He faces trials and tribulations. And I had the honor of composing music for that video game.
Oh, wow. And where can we find both of your stuff? Like, what are your handles?
Okay, so you can find me on all streaming services under the name Rugawd. That is Rugawd. And on most social platforms, it is Rugawd Music with a K.
Okay, and Aaron?
So you can just find me on all streaming platforms under Aaron Olds. So that's just ERINOLDS. And my handle on Instagram is Mrs. Tambourine Man.
Aaron Olds and Ruben Davila Jr., thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Stay
you
tuned.
for having me.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Scott Tong. We celebrate Public Radio Music Day with some songs and local public radio station DJs. Here's Tony Lawson in Eastern Tennessee.
It's very vibrant. This one sort of celebrates the spirit and the juice of WDVX.
Public Radio Music Day, next time, here and now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
You want critical information this hurricane season, and WUSF is here to help. It all starts with our comprehensive guide at WUSF.org. It answers common hurricane-related questions, like preparing a go kit or safety plan. As storms approach, we'll be on air and online with live local updates and information from the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. Before, during, and after storms, WUSF is here for you, ready to serve.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from Creative Loafing, hosting Whiskey Business, Boots, Brews, and Bourbon, with samples of whiskey, bourbon, beer, and more at the James Museum in downtown St. Pete on Friday, November 7th. Details at whiskeybusinesstampabay.com. USF's 3-year Doctor of Business Administration program is designed to fit the lives of working executives. Sign up for an info session at USF Mumma College of Business DBA at usf.edu/DBA. Classes start in January.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, all this talk about music has got me thinking about beer, local beer to be exact. Tempeños have been cracking open cold ones since the first bricks were laid in the city. One of the first things that Ybor City's Cuban settlers did was to start a brewery. So we're about to tap into Tampa's long history of beer with Jeff Hauk. He's the Vice President of Marketing for the Columbia Restaurant Group and former food writer for the Tampa Tribune. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Now, you're the Vice President of Marketing for the Columbia Restaurant Group and also the former food writer for the Tampa Tribune, right?
That is both accurate. 1905 family restaurants now.
Yeah, wow, okay. So for people who are brand new to Tampa Bay, what is the beer scene like here?
You know, there was an explosion in the mid-2000s of craft brewing. And it really wasn't, you know, it's a lot about what's happening in food now is not new. It is a continuation of a story that kind of went sleepy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Florida had a great history of craft brewing and brewing in general, but there was a huge underground craft home brewing group.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mid-2000s, when conditions were right, you saw a lot of those groups sort of starting and making their own breweries, and especially Cigar City Beer.
Mm-hmm.
And they helped foster other breweries, and people learned at Cigar City and then made their own. And you had what was essentially a brew belt that happened between Sarasota all the way up I-4 to Jacksonville.
A brew belt.
I would call it a brew belt. It's like all these little breweries started proliferating, as was already happening in places like Oregon and California and up in the Northeast. But that really started to take hold in Tampa sort of the late 2000s. And you had all these breweries. You know, I live out in Valrico, and we have 3 or 4 breweries just out there. And that only happened because there was this healthy kind of learn and go do kind of atmosphere at all the other breweries. People would kind of get trained and then say, well, I'd like to make a brewery here. And so they're all over the area. It's kind of plateaued a little bit, but it's still very, very popular. And people are making some great award-winning craft breweries, including at one of the restaurants that I represent, which is Eulalie. They basically make brews only for the restaurant, and it's not circulated. They're not canned or bottled. It is meant to be paired with the food on the menu there, and that's something that happened right around 2014.
Is it worth doing that? Because, I mean, there's quite a lot of infrastructure that goes into brewing, right? Like, I've sat in restaurants and I've seen, they have the big windows. You can see the tanks behind there. You can see the brewer kind of wandering around, tinkering with things. But that's a lot of stuff for a beer that's just in-house.
It's an investment. And when Eulalie did it, they bought American-made equipment. That was a part of it. But it's also a continuation of the story of the company for the 1905 family restaurants, because the Florida Brewing Company, a Florida brewery, started in Ybor City using water that was generated partly at that water plant, and that water supplied all of Ybor City. And the Columbia restaurant, the mothership of the company, used that water, and the Columbia started out as Saloon Columbia, which was a tasting room for the Florida brewery. So it's all very cyclical. It's important if you care about telling stories through food, and you can't tell the story of Tampa's food without including brewing in it.
Yeah. Now, you've got a couple of
selections
here.
I brought some friends with me. Yeah. There's a company in Miami called Cerveceria that has the license to make La Tropical beer, which is the brand that Florida Brewery made in the early 1900s. They licensed it from Cuba. It was the #1 beer of Cuba. And then the Florida Brewery in Ybor City in the early 1900s did such a great job. It wound up being the predominant popular brewery for Cuba.
Wow.
There was a shipping line that left from the Deepwater Port of Tampa that went to Havana, a lot of things north and south, cattle, you name it. Miami was still sort of Fort Dallas at that point. But we had the natural port, and we had Henry Plant's railroad that would empty here. So beer went south and products came north. But the La Tropical brand relaunched in Tampa in 2022. It had been in Miami for a while, but that brand hadn't been in Tampa, close to 50 years, and they brought it back in a variety of styles. I brought you some Travelers just for you to sample after the show.
I'm just going to... There we go. Sorry.
We've already had an accident.
I'm just going to hold this up for the camera. I'm not going to crack this, but this is it's a Nativo Key Suave IPA. It's got some looks like flamingos and guitars and stuff going on there.
Very popular on labels. Yeah, it's a nice bright orange on the label on the outside of the can.
A kind of a... This is, I guess, a little more European-looking can.
Yeah,
so quite.
It almost looks like an energy drink.
It does a bit, yeah.
Well, and depending on your energy level, I guess that works. But the whole point is, La Tropical and the Florida Brewery made ales. They made Bock. They made all different kinds of styles. But it's nice to have. It's almost like time travel. You sip that beer, it's the same recipes that they were using more than a century ago.
You mentioned Cigar City a moment ago. Now, that's a label that's now on lots of supermarket shelves and restaurants, right? But it was kind of a micro brew from the get-go, right?
Very much so.
Expanded.
It was a passion project of a man named Joey Redner, and who worked with a brewer named Wayne Wombles. Wayne is sort of the Rain Man of Florida beer. He just he sees things that nobody else sees. They built up this brewery. The first time they won a medal at the World Brewing Championships, they weren't even in cans. They were still underway. And I went to do a story when I was at the Tampa Tribune, and they gave me the beer. And they're like, "You want to try some?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I had never tasted it. And I tried it, and they brought out a glass that said Mons Venus on it. I'm not making this up.
Okay, hang on a minute. So this is a reference to
there's an establishment on Dale Mabry that anybody who's lived here for a while has driven past. And Joey's father, Joe Redner, Mons Venus, was an original investor in Cigar City, and then had his investment paid back. But it basically provided the seed money. It's a very Tampa story.
Is that the one with the UFO on the roof, or is that a different one?
I believe it's the classy one next to the former pizza restaurant, or so I've heard. But anyway, the whole point is that it's a very Tampa story where you take a little bit of seed money and make something that over exceeds anybody's expectations. But Joey knew from the home brewing atmosphere here that beer was ready to kind of grow into the new thing. The most important thing to me for Cigar City was it's sort of like the Hava Tampa cigars that were popular for generations in Tampa that were produced here. Every beer that left Tampa under the Cigar City brand told a different Tampa story, whether it's High Life, whether it's Cracker, whether it's all different kinds of styles that they had. Everything was exporting a Tampa story, and that hadn't happened in a long time. A lot of stuff came in from other places and kind of found a home here, but this really kind of sent a calling card out in a very big way.
Let's come back to the Florida Brewing Company. So it opened in 1897. The building is still there, right? It's like the tallest building in Ybor City.
It is. It's 71 feet. It was 1897 that it opened officially. They had a big barbecue. I think it was something like, it took $200,000 for the investors to open it, which would be like $6 million today. They had a massive barbecue, like 20 different barbecue carcasses there. They had pickles. They had all kinds of stuff. And they said that, it was a beer that was so pure. It came from something that was called a government spring. They built the brewery right over this spring, and they said that the water was so pure that you couldn't get drunk. That proved not to be true. There was an argument during the event in which somebody reached for a jar and another person reached for a jar. There was a fight, and then there was imminent death. So they got off to a flying start, but it was they had to deal with the temperature, so they had to have an ice plant, and they would brew in the top floor, and then it would sort of cascade and down through the building. Eventually, they would put it in barrels on the bottom floor, and then that's where they would refrigerate everything.
So the building's still there, but there's no beer being brewed there right now.
No, it's a law office now, so it's a much different purpose. It was modeled on a brewery that was first built in Johannesburg, and it opened to massive acclaim in terms of the architecture, the beer that was being made. It was Florida's first brewery, and that lasted up through really about the 1930s. It had a huge impact on not only Florida, but also, like I said, the Caribbean and Cuba.
Now, IPA, India Pale Ale, that was sort of developed as a way to transport beer to India, right? It had like the hops would kind of give it some extra preservative.
The hoppiness is what gives it its signature, and that was a British sort of invention. When they had, I forgot to mention that when they had their opening barbecue in 1897 at Florida Brewery, they had 2 giant alligators that they killed and put on their backs, and then they had platters in each of the front paws of the alligators. I'm not making this up. I read this. The 2 platters, and on one platter was all the malt, and on another platter were the hops. And I thought, that's a display.
Very Florida story.
Yeah, that's not a Martha Stewart kind of display that you would have, but it was very Tampa, and I don't think it was probably very hard at that point. There were only 15,000 people in 1900. 1890 there were 5,000 people, and then by 1900 there was triple that amount, close to 15,000 people who lived in Tampa. That's a lot of production for that small amount of audience, but they really wanted to come out with a bang.
In the last kind of minute or so we have here, Jeff, if you want to kind of do a tour of local brews around the Tampa area, can you still kind of taste some of that history that you've been talking about?
It's funny because there's like whiskey will like to brag that this is Prohibition style. Well, they didn't do that until after Prohibition, and Prohibition took a big chunk out of the Florida brewery in that they could only do sodas and other things for a period of time, even though they got caught doing it. During Prohibition, Tampa was one of the wettest places in America because there was so much coastline, so much contraband. I think that there are styles. The La Tropical beer that's produced in Miami, I think is a good way to taste that style. As far as the current breweries, they're all doing sort of modern versions of beer. But beer is beer. They've been making it for thousands of years. Not to say that that's not a differentiator. Everybody has to have their own little thing. Sure. I'm going out on Wednesday. We're picking wild guava down in Mayaca so we can make a guava-flavored beer at Eulalie.
Okay, well, we'll have to bring you back to sample some of that maybe down the track.
That would be good.
Jeff Haug, Vice President of Marketing for the Columbia Restaurant Group and former food writer for the Tampa Tribune, talking about beer in Tampa. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Well, that's our show for today. By the way, if you enjoyed hearing from those musicians earlier, you can discover more artists on Tiny Desk Radio, airing Friday nights at 9 on WUSF 89.7. Tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, it's time to celebrate Halloween. We've got a creepy good show for you. If you haven't got a costume idea yet, we'll have some ideas for doing Halloween on a budget and visit one of Tampa's most haunted buildings. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Geo Garvin. Jackson composed our theme music, and Natalie Jaron handled the video. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcast and watch on WSF's YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.
I'm Marco Werman. Each day on The World, we step outside our borders to hear what's going on around the planet and to hear how events in the United States are seen across Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Our producer